Yes, that's right. It's the Survivor Know-It-Alls live after the finale of Survivor, Cagayan. And Steven, get that fecal matter off your glasses because Team TV, he did it. This is huge. He needed this, and he got it done. Congratulations to Tony.
He did it. He did it. What a capstone on an incredible season. The best possible winner in my opinion. Spencer was obviously great, and I was all in on Spencer winning. I'm happy to say I was wrong. No offense to Spencer, who played an amazing game, but Tony just dominated this season. He's one of the biggest and best characters that Survivor has ever seen, and him winning his first time out against a really competitive field is such a satisfying conclusion to this season.
Tony did it. I didn't think he had it in him. I thought we were being set up all night long for a Woo and Cass final two, and I thought we were going to be sitting here trying to talk about whether Cass was robbed and whether Woo should have been the winner. But once they showed that clip of Woo saying, you know, it would pretty much be the dumbest thing ever if I didn't take Cass with me to the final two. I'm like, ooh, why is that in there? And then I said, okay, that sort of changed everything for me because freaking Cochran got me all on the Woo train the other day and was like, Woo's winning the game. It's Woo's season to win, and you get ready for a Woo montage. And then it was all he threw me off in the wrong direction. He threw me off the scent of Tony.
You know what did it? You know what I thought Woo was going to win was when they had him saying, I'm going to propose to my girlfriend, Christina so-and-so, and then they had her saying it again. I was like, oh my God, They're really guilting him into this. They're really like...
He was like, in the first 10 minutes, he's like, yeah, man, I'm going to win Survivor. Write me the check for $1 million to Young Woo Hang, millionaire Survivor winner. I was like, oh, that's a winner's edit right there. That's the winner's edit, but they threw us off the track.
They did. They threw us off, and I even in that brutal final tribal council, I thought, wow, this is where Tony is going to lose it all. He's not owning up to his game. The jury is saying own up to your game, and he's hedging. He's using double speak. Come on, Tony, just say that you were the villain. Say that you made the moves. And I was like, I can't believe it. Woo is completely serviceable. Woo had a very decent final tribal council. And I thought Woo was going to win it all. And even when they were showing the votes, I was like, I cannot believe it. Just Spencer voted for poor Tony, and it was the opposite.
All right, well, we got so much to do here tonight on our Survivor Know-It-Alls live show. We are breaking records now for people watching the show simultaneously. We're at 1,200 people watching us live, we've now passed over 1,200 people live, wow, which is a record because it's late on the East Coast, and that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's late. It's late, right? I'm tired. I would not be watching us live, so thank you to the people who are.
We've got the chat room going here on robhasawebsite.com. Of course, we've got and the chat room on the website is also grinding to a halt because we have so many people on the website right now. We've also are taking your hashtags on Twitter. We had so much fun on Twitter during the show. Hashtag RHAP, and of course, Scott St. Pierre is going through all of your questions, hundreds of questions coming in right now on our YouTube channel at robhasawebsite.com/YouTube. And of course, Steven, have you noticed this on my desk right here? Do you know what this is?
Wait, let me guess. It's some kind of punch bowl.
It's the Rob Has a Podcast Survivor Cagayan Fan Favorite Player of the Season Award. Steven, how do you like that?
This is amazing. The person who wins this is really quite a statuette because not only will they be able to ring the bell, but they will also be able to serve punch at a party.
There you go. No, it's closed in the top, if you can see that. That's actually...
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. But they can ring the bell, so no punch. Maybe guacamole or something. It's not as deep as it looked.
That's right. That's right. There you go. So we are going to give you the winner of that, and we're going to tell you who you voted for. We had the most votes ever in the history of any Rob Has a Podcast poll. So more than Miss Survivor, Mr. Survivor, anything we've ever done. We had over 10,000 votes cast.
And how many of those were from Tony's friends?
We don't. We'll find out. We'll find out. So I also, in addition to winning the RHAP Survivor Fan Favorite Player of the Season, I will also be having a special interview this week with the winner of the Survivor Fan Favorite Player of the Season, in addition to my interviews with the Final Four. So I'm going to have interviews with the Final Four, and then later this week I will bring you an interview with the winner of the RHAP Survivor Fan Favorite Player.
I mean, so odds are there's going to be some overlap, right? Like in those interviews.
You would think so, but you don't know.
I do think so. I want to guess. I want to play a guessing game.
All right,
now.
you want to play?
I love guessing games.
You want to play the guessing game? Okay, so what do you want to start? You want to give us? You want me to give you number 5 right now?
Oh, should we just go right into number 5? I want to guess number 5 right now. We can tease it throughout the show.
Let's do it throughout the show. Okay, here we go.
Number 5. Okay.
Number 5.
I think number 5 is going to be Cass.
Number 5 is going to be Cass, and I'm sorry, Steven. That is incorrect.
Oh.
Number 5 with 550 votes is Jeremy.
Oh, wow. I would not have guessed Jeremy. All right.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Good for Jeremy. Jeremy, number 5. Okay, so we'll get to all the other things as we go along. Let's talk about Tony's game here as the winner of Survivor. I feel like Tony is a very interesting Survivor winner because he was polarizing all season long, where there was lots of moves he made that we said, hey, great job, Tony, those were great moves. There was lots of moves he made during the game we said, that is not a good move.
Right.
That is a bad move. So what is your take on this, Steven? Was Tony a very good player who got lucky in spots, or was he right the whole way through, and were we wrong to criticize him?
Well, so I was going to ask you the same question, so I'm sorry that you turned it around on me, because in some ways, Tony's win does kind of justify all of those moves that we criticized. You know, the big ones being Tony voting out LJ so soon, and then the biggest probably being when Tony had an opportunity to vote out Spencer and he took out Jeffra instead. I think we both thought, you know, this is really an aggressive move. You've got this guy who's a huge threat to win, huge challenge competitor, is actively against you. Like, why are you turning on Jeffra because of this, you know, nebulous women's alliance? In some ways, Tony's victory does justify the moves he made to get here. In my opinion, what do you think, Rob?
I think Tony was a very talented but imperfect player, and I think he made a number of mistakes along the way, but he was so good he was able to correct his mistakes. By all accounts, he should have came in third. He should have lost. Wu should have taken Cass. He was able to then convince Wu to make the wrong move for Wu, and I know Wu is going to talk about, you know, I made the move that was the honorable move. I came into this game, and there were the 5 rules of Taekwondo, and I followed them all, and so I'm the winner of Survivor Taekwondo, no matter what. And so, but I don't care about that. Tony got Wu to make the wrong move. So Tony was able to correct the earlier mistake, and I think the earlier mistake was voting out Trish. I think that if Tony sticks with the final 3 of Trish and Wu and him and just rides that out like the traditional gameplay would be, and even if it went down to a final 2, I still think he ends up in there. I don't think that Trish and Wu end up turning against Tony. I think if he just plays that out and votes out Cass and then votes out Spencer at 5 and 4, then I think that Tony wins the game, and it's not as close as it had to be for Tony.
I mean, that's possible. I think that's possible. That's one of those marginal decisions where, you know, really hard to say. I mean, maybe Trish beats Tony, you know? Maybe the jury, maybe Trish makes the sort of case where the case that she kind of made in her jury speech, which was, you know, Tony was so paranoid. He was running all over the island. He was the Dawn of this season. I'm the Cochrane. I'm the one who kept him stable. I'm the one who you all trusted. I was the one who created these alliances that were the core of this game. You know, Wu didn't have a narrative that he could make at that point. And maybe Tony knew all along that he could, you know, that he could snooker Wu. You know, that maybe he really knew, because I think, you know, Tony's superpower, like Russell Hantz's superpower to a great degree, is just this incredible ability to read people. Tony knew that maybe Tony knew that Wu was going to stick by his side the whole time.
I don't know. I mean, that he would be very omniscient to be able to know that. It seemed like that was an unnecessary gamble that he ended up having to be in. And I felt like he got lucky on a couple of those breaks. Not to take anything away from Tony, because he did such a great job this season, and he's such a great winner of the show. I was really bummed out when I felt like we were going to be talking about that the final 2 was Wu versus Cass, and Wu was going to be the winner of Survivor. And I was prepared to come on here today, Steven, and say that I thought Cass got screwed, and I think Cass should have beaten Wu if they got to the final 2. Even though everybody in the jury said it would have been 9-0 for Wu, I think Cass should have won the game over Wu.
Yeah, no, I would have hypothetically agreed with you about that, but luckily we don't have to have that conversation. Luckily we get to talk about Tony, who, I was talking to Cochran about him, and Cochran was saying, and I've kind of stolen this now. Cochran was saying, if Tony wins, he is the best combination character player in the history of the show, and I think that is true. I think that, as a combination of big character and big strategist, Tony is the best.
Tony is amazing. Tony was a win in casting. That he was such a character. He was so great to watch. I felt like I wanted to come on and talk like Tony the whole night. Can I talk like Tony for a little bit, Steven?
Yeah, just go. Is it going to be all llama? Is it all llama speak?
Look, Woo, I was so excited to be here to win the game, and I'm so sorry that my beautiful wife couldn't be here with us today. She's beautiful, and she's got green eyes, and she's not here. And here's my friend, and my friend came to visit. Did you think that Tony was going to do a Johnny Fairplay with his friend? I was like, oh, come on, Tony. This is too
I thought
much
there was
now.
a moment. I mean, initially I thought there was a moment. Initially I thought, wow, like poor Tony. But then I really did think that there could be a scam here, and that would have been total Tony, right? That's such Team TV move there. Let every part of the game be some kind of hustle.
But Tony was so great TV. He had all of those sound clips that we played all season long. He came up with nicknames. He made the Spy Shack. He did all of these things, and plus he kept the game changing so much. And He even made, and I think this plays into why he was such great TV. I think he made moves that were not the correct moves, but he always made the move that was on the side of what was the most interesting for the TV show.
And here's what Tony tweeted to me when we were having our heart-to-heart after
is this family friendly, Steven?
Yeah, it's totally family friendly, and it actually and I didn't want to say anything about it at the time because I thought maybe it seemed like it was outside of canon, right? It was not on the TV show. I didn't want to bring it into the podcast. Now the season's over. I feel like it's safe game. He said, he didn't like that we talked about him like a character and not like a strategist, and that all of his moves were very strategic. Now everyone says that, but one move that he did explain, which I thought was a pretty good explanation, was not voting out Spencer instead of Jeffra. And he said, I needed to have Spencer around because he was the big target, and as long as Spencer was there, all the heat was off me because everyone knew Spencer had to go. So obviously he knew he needed to get Spencer out at the end, but at 7 or 8 or whenever Jeffra was voted out, he thought it's worth it to have Spencer in the game here. That gives me a little bit of breathing room because the focus is going to be on him. And I thought that was a very smart way of thinking about it.
Yeah, he was really, really great. He did so many great things, and we've had a number of strong winners recently, going back to. You had Boston Rob.
Yeah.
Sophie.
Yeah.
And then Kim Spradlin.
Sure.
Denise Stapley.
Yeah.
And then you have then Cochran and Tyson. Yeah. And Tony. So we've been on a real nice run of really strong winners that have played the game well.
So Fabio is where it ends?
Fabio is where it ends. And it's funny because in the Cochran podcast, we talked about how if Wu wins, it would be like if Fabio was to win the game. And then it was the ghost of Fabio was conjured up tonight by Cass. And I said, oh, here we go, Wu versus Fabio season.
Right. So, well, it did have that sort of sense of, Fabio was the guy who played with heart, just like Wu did. And then you had sort of a Sash versus, as Tony character, But, I think the jury ultimately really respected Tony's game. I mean, all the things they said, even when they were criticizing him, were just impressed at how he was able to beguile people, how he was able to manipulate people. And I think that is something that gets lost a little bit when we talk about all of Tony's big moves and his blind sides, was how much he was able to have people in his back pocket even though he didn't have boobs.
Yes, that was fantastic. How is Tony able to do it if he doesn't have breasts? How can he do anything?
Unclear. Yeah.
Morgan has a good point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, so I wanted to ask you about what you thought of the reunion show overall. I thought the reunion show, for the most part, kind of anticlimactic. Maybe this cast gets along too well. I thought that we were going to see really a lot of bitterness.
Well, there was a lot of stuff going on that was sort of not. As always, I would have liked to have had, fewer police officers from the audience, more questions to the actual cast. I think some people like Bryce would have loved to have just had his 6 words. Jeff obviously disagrees with that. There was some real bitterness with Sarah there.
Yeah, the Sarah thing was interesting because we went to her in the first segment, and it was like Jeff couldn't wait to talk about that. And then Sarah, who I always liked very much on the show this season, went out in the middle. First person voted off in the merge, and it was like Jeff wanted to go to that right away. And I thought that actually we might get a little bit of RHAP talk brought into the mix because Sarah talked about what happened after she did her exit press between this podcast specifically, and then also on Survivor Live with Parvati, and I'm sure probably a couple other places, we talked about her getting mad at Tony about swearing on the badge, and he berated her on Twitter, and they really went after each other. And I was surprised to see, one, that Sarah is still upset about this, not talking to Tony, and two, Tony has been kicked out of Cops R Us.
Oh my God, I thought he started Cops R Us.
He got kicked out.
How did that's his alliance. How does he get kicked out?
I don't know. That's like when, I think that the woman is able to do this. It's just like when, your wife says, you're sleeping on the couch. I think that Sarah was able to, you're out of Cops R Us now, Tony. Get out of here.
All right.
Don't take the pillow downstairs.
Yeah, there you go.
So that was very, very interesting. Did you like seeing an insight into that?
And you know what? I didn't care. I didn't care if, after the fact, he said one thing and she said another thing. And, I don't, nah.
Yeah. Sort of.
You?
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was at least some conflict. I feel like we didn't really get much of that on the entire reunion show. Let's talk a little bit about Spencer, how he goes out now. Now you have been saying for many weeks you felt like Spencer was going to win the game. I felt like you talked me into Spencer winning the game.
And I feel like this whole season I have been wrong about everything the entire time. Every prediction I have made has been wrong. And I wasn't saying Spencer either because of his gameplay or anything like that. I just thought his edit was so immaculate. And, people kept on saying, you included, well, Malcolm had a similar edit, and he came in 4th, and I acknowledged that possibility, but I didn't think anyone else had that winner edit. And so 2 things I want to say. One, I was clearly wrong, and you were obviously right about Spencer. And then 2, what a great winner. It's so great to have such a full edit for Tony, I mean, sometimes you do feel like people get a little bit of whitewashed in the editing room, and it was so fun to have such a wonderfully flawed winner who throughout the entire season, we loved him, we hated him, we saw what a jerk he was, we saw how good he was at the game, and you had this fully complex character who then won the whole thing.
He was great. Steven, one of the things that I would say threw me off about Tony, why was he so mad on Twitter all season long? You would think that the guy who, I've never seen somebody who wins the game and then is annoyed on social media the whole season.
I totally agree. I mean, and it just looks like that's his persona, right? He can't stop himself from spinning and playing. And he probably is, back at home, raising a family in his normal life, and he's like, I want to make a move. I want to make what's my next move? And it's like, Someone on Twitter is trying to strike me down. I got to get him. It's like he's Steven, so in the game.
Look. Twitter. I'm an impulsive person. I go on Twitter. I think of something to say, and then I tweet it out. And then all day long, I'm making these tweets, saying all these things, and I'm digging my grave. And then all night long, I stay up all night trying to think about how to fix it. And then I haven't slept in 6 years, Steven.
Do you think, is this, as Jeff Probst says, the best cast ever?
It's a very, very good cast.
It might be the best cast ever.
I really love this cast. I mean, it would be hard to go.
China is a great cast. Heroes vs. Villains is probably the best cast ever. Best cast of new players ever.
I think that you could probably count the duds on one hand, and probably even the duds, gave you something. It's hard for me to even think of somebody off the top of my head that was like a total waste, where they were boring and they brought nothing to the table.
Jeffra. Even Jeffress, switched. You
can count them on one hand. That's all. We don't even need to name names. But for the most part, very, very few people, and it's a big cast, 18 people. So they really did a good job this season.
Yeah, totally agree. I completely agree. Great cast. And to Jeff's point, a lot of people who were really in the hunt playing to win. You have someone like Alexis, who in any other season is going to be kind of like this ditzy, girl, that spot, that like cute girl, and she was playing hard. She was a real fan, real strategist.
Let's go back to the move at the Final Four, where Tony has the opportunity to vote with Spencer and force a 2-2 tie. In that case, it would force Spencer and Wu to make a fire. Did you think that that was the right decision for him to vote with Wu and Cass at that point?
No question, that is the correct decision. At best, in that instance, Tony is saying he does not want Spencer to go home, right? If he wants Spencer to go home, he just votes out Spencer. If he wants Wu to go home, he votes out Wu. Now, that basically means it is Spencer against him and Cass in the final immunity. Spencer has won many, many immunities. Spencer is the biggest threat to win. Keeping Spencer in the game at this point is a horrible decision. He's the biggest threat to win immunity. He's the biggest threat to win the game. You've got to get that person out. You have a slightly lower shot of getting to the end, but you have a much bigger shot at winning to the end if you do get there.
All right, Steven, people are asking for number 4 in the RHAP fan favorite player of the season. I told you that number 5, Jeremy, had 5.4% of the vote. 550 votes were cast for Jeremiah, who was a little salty at the Final Tribal Council. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. Number 4, my prediction is Trish. Number 4 is going to be Trish.
Number 4 is going to be Trish. And, Steven, you are, once again, like all season long, off the mark.
I've been wrong about everything this season.
You've been wrong about everything. It was Cass with...
Cass was who I said for number 5.
6.1% of the vote. And I'll tell you how off you were with Trish, who did not fare well in this. Trish came in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12th in the overall voting.
All right, that's just crazy.
Only 1.1% of the votes were cast for Trish. 113 votes overall for your RHAP fan favorite player of the season.
That's crazy. I mean, Trish had played a great game. You guys are wrong.
She wasn't the fan favorite, Steven.
Right,
she was not the fan favorite.
You're absolutely right. I apologize. You guys are right.
Okay. Yeah. Spencer, the way that he goes out at the Final Four, were you very upset for him, or you felt like that it was a nice end to his arc?
I thought it was great. He went out. He even had a strong play at the very end. I would have been dissatisfied with the Spencer win. I'm going to be honest. I thought he played a great game. I loved watching him play, but this was so much Tony's season. Spencer certainly more than Cass or Wu I would have loved to have seen. But I was really rooting for the Tony win and happy to see Spencer go at that moment.
I want to sort of bounce around to a couple quick things before I want to get to a lot of questions tonight. Family visit, the way they did it at the Final Four. It was not a challenge. It was sort of like family members and friends mostly just showed up, and they sort of had breakfast, and then they were sort of spectators in the Final Four challenge. Really didn't have anything to do in the Final Four challenge. Did you like this more than the traditional family visit?
I think it would have been a little bit nicer if it had been like actual families. It was, I guess it was, had Tony's wife been there or whatever. I mean, I thought it was fun having Cass's husband there, and just at this like moment right at the end to kind of have this push through. And sometimes the family visit sort of overpowers the episode. Nice to sort of have it as a little piece of this episode. But did it take the place of the rites of passage? If so, gotta consider our options here.
You're a big rites of passage guy.
I get teary every time with the rites of passage.
Okay.
The edited clips, I just love it.
How about the new finale format? We had Jeff throughout the night. We saw Jeff take us into the green room. Jeff showed us the crowd. Jeff talked to a troop of 10 and 11-year-olds. He talked to Parvati. What did you think of Jeff cutting in during the finale show, the Final Four show?
No opinion. What was your take?
I would say I like the idea. I don't think it's a home run yet. I was hoping what they were going to do was pump the crowd noise in for the finale. They do it on Celebrity Apprentice. Right. I think it works great. When there's an emotional beat, the crowd is like, oh. When somebody is, does something good, everybody's clapping. So I would have liked to have seen them pump the crowd noise in because it's so much fun to be there. I feel like it would have been more like watching like a sporting event. But they didn't do that like they do on Celebrity Apprentice. I thought that a lot of the Jeff things were were interesting, but I felt like a couple of them were just sort of time wasters.
Right. Well, try some things out, see what hits, see what doesn't. Good for them.
Okay. Steven, we found out tonight that the next season of Survivor is going to be Blood versus Water 2.
Yeah.
Do you think that this is a good idea? We both liked Blood versus Water 1, or do you think it's too soon to go back to the well?
I don't think Blood versus Water is something like like a one world thing where it's like this weird twist I think Blood versus Water could be a really fundamental format shift for Survivor. If every season were a Blood versus Water, I think I might even be happy with that. I don't want to commit myself to that. I just think Blood versus Water adds so much wealth to the game that I love it. I'm happy to see another season. I'm not at all tired of it yet. I think it makes what had become a bit of a strategic sort of a really strategic game. I think it makes it much more emotional. I'm very excited to see it.
I think it's a little too soon. I thought it was too fast to go back to it. It was like, I know everybody liked it. It worked so good, and the impulse is like, okay, we got to do it again. But I feel like it makes it less special to do it again. I feel like if they did it at Survivor 31, I feel like I would have been fine with that. I feel like wait 2 years and you want to do another Blood versus Water. But I feel like 1 year is too soon to do the same exact twist.
Why does it have to be special, Rob? Why can't it just be why can't it just be a thing? Sometimes they do it, sometimes they don't. It's like having a hands-on season.
Because I feel like that's a different show than what Survivor is normally, where it's like it basically is like, okay, oh well, Heroes versus Villains was so good, let's make Survivor 22 another all-star season.
Well, but it's different. I think it's different to have like a format shift versus always all-stars. All-stars you're bringing back the same people. People who have played Survivor are much more jaded. They're much than people who are new. And if this new Blood versus Water really is all new players, as the rumor is. What a great idea that is, right?
Yeah. So that's very, very exciting to see what they're going to do. It's supposed to be all new players, so we'll see how that. I'm sure we're gonna enjoy it, but I just felt like it was too soon to do that.
What do you think of the fact that Jeff now, based on the fact that a group of screaming fans who happen to be in Los Angeles at the same time as the finale, based on the fact of their screaming, he's going to bring back the Tyler Perry idol?
I don't know if the Tyler Perry idol was necessarily going to be brought back. Did you think Tyler Perry had a good spot tonight in the episode?
You know what? He handled it well. It's better than the Mayim Bialik spot.
Yeah, better than Mayim Bialik. But Mayim Bialik didn't have any twists.
Yeah, true. Maybe if there had been some like great math twist, some sort of like fractional twist. You didn't think that like Tyler Perry's like Jeff says, I thought so. The only reason you didn't like the idol is because of the who got it. Like, really? Like, no, we didn't like the idol from the very beginning. He hears what he wants to hear. It's like with Redemption Island. When he said at the end of Redemption Island, who here likes Redemption Island? Of course everyone cheers. They're in the audience. It's an exciting moment. They're being asked to cheer. He's like, 60 people are cheering right now. Sounds like you loved it. Let's bring it back every season. Like that. I mean, it's just...
Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes I think Jeff can get a little bit in echo chamber and sort of hear whatever he wants to hear and sort of like, oh, I heard from the people on the street, and that whole thing. Steven, I saw that you were pumped up about the Survivor Token Cheens, or is it Token Cheens or Token
It's
Cheens?
Token Cheens. What is this commercial? I was really excited. New Token Cheens DVD is coming out. For some reason, I look like some like stereotype of a Jew on the cover. Like, it is a picture of me, so it is an accurate representation of what I look like at one point. But it is the most hook-nosed, schemy-looking. Like, I might as well be eating like baby blood or something in this picture. It's like such an anti-Semitic caricature.
Steven, did you check out Jeff Probst's Ask Me Anything on Reddit this week?
I did see that it was great. He had some good questions, some good responses.
Yeah. So there's a new list that's out there of the top 6 most strategic players of all time, Steven. Yeah. Do you have the strategic 6?
Yeah. Strategic 6, I believe. The most strategic players.
What was the question that was asked? Jeff, they asked, who are the most 6...
the question was like, who... I mean... I want to give Jeff. All right, I'm going to be a little bit fair here, unfortunately. So Jeff was asked this question: who are the most strategic players in the game? And he says, just rattling off. He says, I'm going to rattle things off, and my mind is kind of blanking, and I have to pee. So I'm just going to give you some names. And Parvati, I guess, Boston Rob, Cochran, Spencer, Tony, and Andrea, I guess.
Okay.
So,
Oh my God.
Right. So I mean, he's just rattling off some names. Who knows why? And I like, because I am a student of the art of like BuzzFeed and Gawker, who will take headlines that are radically out of context from the middle of someone's interview. Say that Jeff Probst declares 6 most strategic players. Andrea is among them, or something like that. And Jeff didn't like that. He responded to me.
Oh, he did? What did he say?
He said, "Come on." Well, actually, this was the best part. He says, "Come on, Fishbach. Like, read the context. I was having trouble thinking of any, and you would definitely be in that list." So there you go. I'm number 7. I'm the 7th of the strategic 7.
He said you would be in the list, or
Yeah.
or is it ironic that Jeff Probst, who is such an integral part of a reality TV show, could be upset about how his quote was edited?
No, you know what? I mean, I feel like I get upset about ridiculous things, when I see myself taken out of context.
Well, Miss Survivor, congratulations on being in the hashtag Strategic 6.
Yeah. Strategic 7, Rob. Strategic 7.
7. Okay. All right. I want to get to your questions here. We have so many questions that I want to get to, but first I wanted to take a moment. We have to thank our sponsor here tonight, our friends at DraftKings.com. And Steven, I know what a big fantasy baseball player you are, and how you have been winning so much money playing fantasy baseball at DraftKings.com. So congratulations on that, Steven. In addition to being in the Strategic 7,
Yeah.
fantasy baseball is back, and you don't want to miss what's happening at DraftKings.com, America's favorite one-day fantasy baseball site. And fantasy baseball at DraftKings is getting huge, just like Tony's win that he needed it. Anyone can enter with just a few bucks and win a ton of cash. People are turning only $11 into $4,000, and people are also winning $100,000 in their first time ever playing. And somebody, it wasn't Tony though, won $1 million at DraftKings.
Wow.
At DraftKings.com. That's right.
That's amazing.
Yeah, Wu had a chance to win $1 million playing DraftKings.com, and he actually gave his chance to Tony.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
He gave the first draft pick to Tony. I mean, I don't know the lingo.
DraftKings takes watching baseball to a whole new level. Now you can win instant cash every day in every game. It's easy to play one-day fantasy baseball at DraftKings. That means no season-long commitments, no being stuck with players, just instant cash every day. And right now, Steven, you can play more fantasy baseball in DraftKings' biggest fantasy baseball contest of the year, over $3 million in cash prizes with $1 million for first place. Enter ROB today at DraftKings.com for your free shot at hundreds, thousands, and even $1 million. Free spots are going quick, so enter ROB now at DraftKings.com, Steven. That's DraftKings.com.
I got to tell you, I don't watch baseball, but I've always thought that if I were to, like, that fantasy baseball would just make it like actually like enjoyable. Like, to me, that always seemed like, this is almost a reason to watch sports, is just to like beat my friends in this arena.
Well, that's perfect. You should get on board.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's start to get to your questions. I'm sure we got so many. Let's see how many we can get to here tonight on our Rob Has a Podcast Survivor finale special. Actually, Steven, one more thing quick before we do that. Let me give you number 3 on the totem pole. What do you want to call this? The big board? Number 3, you ready?
Oh, no, I want to guess.
9.8%, 1,007 votes. Who you got?
Tasha,
and you nailed it.
Oh, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. There you go. Steven, did you feel like that Tasha may have gotten a little overrated this season?
Yeah, fans really reacted really positively to Tasha in a way that, she was a strategic player, she was a challenge threat. I think on a different season, Tasha would have been a bigger player, but I did feel like she was, with much bigger players, Tony, Cass, Spencer certainly, even Trish, I thought Tasha did not really have a great game that we saw, at least, but yet fans really, really were into her.
I liked Tasha quite a bit. I thought she was great in the challenges, but I felt like at times she faded into the background this season. So
right, and
I feel like Tasha was very good, but I'm not saying, oh my God, Tasha is a must-have to bring her back.
And you know what? Tasha may be responsible for one of the biggest moves of the season. She could not keep Cass on board with her alliance. And you know what? That's one of the reasons that I do think Spencer and Tasha both deserve to lose is that Cass flipped, and I always think if your alliance mate flips, that is on you. You need to make your alliance mates feel good. If you can't do that, that is your own fault.
Yeah, and I feel like Cass she had a very strong night tonight. I feel like she cemented that Cass should come back tonight.
Oh, yeah, and you know what? I mean, what do you think about the things she said, Rob? Cass said, if I were a man, people would think I was a great player, and people just think I'm a bitch. And it was almost like she was speaking to the fans at home, that she had this awareness of the way people were going to perceive her. I played like a man, she said. Do you think that if Cass had played like a man, or if Cass were a man, she would have been better liked?
Wait, hold on. This isn't like you're not going to trap me and then Eliza is going to say I'm against people transitioning, right?
No.
No, I disagreed with what Cass was saying. I didn't feel like that Cass was playing like a man and that was what was unlikable about her at times. I just thought she kind of had like sort of a sourpuss attitude throughout most of the season. And I felt like one of the things that I don't like about Survivor contestants, I hate it when the Survivor contestants just complain about how everybody else is an idiot, but they don't really do a lot of things to sort of change what's going on. I know Cass had the one big move earlier on in the season, but the rest of the way, she really didn't create didn't have too big of an impact on the vote. And so I kind of felt like that, she was always telling us Tony was an idiot, Spencer was an idiot, this person was an idiot. And so I kind of didn't like that attitude. But I feel like that they should bring Cass back, and I think that there's enough there. Am I contradicting myself?
No, I mean, I think she did more than you're giving her credit for. I think she she pulled Wu away from Tony, then she pulled Wu back to Tony. Early on she kept Spencer instead of Jatia. I think there were a number of moves along the way where Cass was really being an active player. And there's also, I mean, we both know there's a lot more that goes into the game than you see on TV, and that people who are doing a lot behind the scenes might not be making it to the edit. So you have to assume that anyone whose moves are making it to the edit is doing a lot of little things throughout the day that are strategic in nature, but that just don't make television.
Okay, let's go. And of course, I'll have interviews with the entire Final Four, and maybe Cass will explain to me why she should have won the game, and maybe she'll even put me in my place, which is always fun. Yeah. So we'll have interviews with the Final Four on Thursday. Okay, so ULM Warhawk 21. This was my immediate thought after Spencer didn't win immunity. Spencer should tell everyone to vote for Tony because he's the biggest threat in the game, and if his special idol actually works, then vote me out. Your thoughts?
Disagree, ULM Warhawk. Spencer was the biggest threat in the game. I think he realized that. I think it was smart of him to go to Tony and say, here is the way that you can make yourself better. I don't think Cass or Wu would have thought that Tony was a bigger threat than Spencer. I think everyone acknowledged that Spencer was the biggest threat in the game. His best appeal was to do a selfish appeal to Tony, and that's what he did.
Yeah, I think it's also very brave of all of us at home to say how people should have voted with Tony's idol because we know it's fake. They didn't know it was fake. They didn't know he couldn't use it. So I feel like that's really a very bold move for the players in the game to make.
And you know what, Tony? I love Tony's analogy, which is you got three Cadillacs. And even if you immediately go to the nicest Cadillac, but if there's a club on it, you're not going to take it. You're going to go to the second Cadillac. You're not going to mess around when there's any danger at all. You're going to do the thing that's easiest and clearest.
Okay, let's go. Next question.
To the Washroom wants to know, can you guys discuss how Tony should have kept Spencer at Final Four? I think we just did. I know it worked out, but that doesn't make it the right move. Actually, this is not what we just talked about. We talked a little bit about what Spencer should have done. Rob, we talked about this earlier, but you think Tony should have kept Spencer?
I don't know. It's hard to say because that Spencer is a bigger threat to win immunity than Wu was, at least had been through the game. So I feel like for Tony, I felt like he had the shot where if Wu won immunity, I think he ultimately did do the right thing. Because if Wu won immunity, he felt like in the back of his head, I still have a chance. I could talk Wu into keeping me, even if he wins immunity. I can't keep Spencer into keeping me no matter what. Spencer's going to take Cass. He's not going to listen to me. So I got to keep Wu.
Yep. I totally agree.
So I thought he did the right thing.
Yeah. We just had another interesting question up that seems to have gone away. But hey, Jorge Alvarado wants to know, what do you think would have happened if Cass took less than half a second and won that final immunity? That's a pretty good question. Cass was so close to that final immunity victory. I mean, that was one of the closest we've ever seen. What do you think?
I think that Cass would have taken Wu to the end.
And lost?
And I think that Cass would have lost. And I think that we would have said that Cass got screwed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's what happened. Even because we've said that the jury votes for who they like better than although did the jury like Tony better? I feel like I feel like they liked Wu better, but I felt like with a straight face they couldn't. I don't think they hated Tony, the jury. So the jury will give the vote to. I think they liked Wu. I don't know if they loved Wu. They weren't crazy about Tony, but they didn't hate Tony. So it was close enough. And the game, there was such a disparity in Tony's game and Wu's game that they couldn't with a straight face. It was probably similar to like, Boston Rob with the other people in his season where it was like, they liked Natalie, maybe they didn't like Philip, but there was too much of a disparity between their games to give.
I mean, yeah, but you got Natalie and Russell Hantz. I think that's you take away from Tony when you say that. I think what Tony was able to do was people might have been bitter at him, but they still respected him in a way that people didn't respect Russell.
Okay. All right,
go ahead.
Scotty RB27 says, where does Wu's move to take Tony rank in the all-time worst Survivor moves? Well, not many moves are as black and white as this. As if Wu does one thing different, he's the winner of Survivor. So yep. I got to feel like, is it number one with a bullet?
I mean, the thing about this is, like, how does it compare to Eric giving up immunity and then immediately being voted out?
Isn't this worse?
I don't know, because Wu doesn't, does Wu, I don't know. What about Colby and Tina?
This is worse.
Why is this worse? Isn't this the same?
No, because at least it was a close vote between Colby and Tina. At least that Colby lost, I think, 4-3, where Wu loses 8-1 and would have beat the other person 9-0. So this was worse.
This is worse than Reichenbach giving up immunity and immediately getting voted out?
Yes. Okay,
I believe you. I kind of agree with you.
Because Eric Reichenbach, like, let's say Eric Reichenbach keeps immunity. Is Eric Reichenbach the winner of Survivor Micronesia?
I mean, not necessarily, but very likely.
Very likely?
I don't know. Maybe. Could have happened.
It was the final two, Steven, and that was the final five. So he's going to get to the final two, Eric Reichenbach?
I believe it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's just declare it. This is the worst move of all time. Worst move of all time. Declared right here.
Woo!
Wow.
Okay. Here we go. Sorry, Wu. Wu's a nice guy. I'm looking forward to talking to Wu tomorrow, but it was not a good move. Ashes to
Tony
ashes.
Still win? Oh, I'm sorry. You want to? Oh. Does Tony still win without Spencer's speech? Ashes to ashes wants to know. The vote was a landslide, but to me, Final Tribal seemed like it would be a lot closer vote.
I tweeted this to you earlier in the night that Spencer basically did the David Murphy.
Oh, yeah.
And I know you love the David Murphy. So.
I do love the David Murphy. But the closing move in the David Murphy is then to ask Carolina to marry you. So he only did the half Murphy.
It was a half Murphy from Spencer. Now, do you feel like, how does that come up? Does Spencer say, you know what, I need to make a point here? Does Spencer know the David Murphy and know that Jeff likes that and that's why he does it?
And Eric Cardona, by the way, Eric Cardona gave this speech in Samoa. About
how come it's not called the Eric Cardona?
I don't know. People like you who forget about him because David Murphy was so memorable.
Okay, so Spencer does a half Murphy.
I don't. Do you think we'll ever see the full Murphy again? Will we ever get to full Murphy?
I don't know. I don't think you ever go full Murphy.
I think that Tony would have won regardless. I think that one jury speech is not going to suddenly make you reassess everything you've been thinking and feeling for 2 or 3 weeks. I think that these people were bitter and they wanted to show their anger, but they ultimately knew that Tony played the better game. Did Spencer's speech maybe affect 1 or 2 people? It's possible. My guess would be that Tony wins regardless. What do you think?
I think that Tony probably wins regardless. I don't know whose vote Spencer necessarily changed, but it looks good for Spencer to be able to do that. And they ultimately, you have the genesis of the friendship that has carried over to Twitter through all this time. Let me ask you a question, Stephen. What is Tasha doing voting for Wu out on an island?
That has to be one of those things. Like those, there's always these random votes that like we haven't seen the edit. It's like Ralph voted for Philip. Like what? Why did that happen? You know, there's always some random. And here's what I think. I think it's that the world does not want me to have a brother or a sister in being shut out in a final two. I'm the only person to have been shut out in a final two. Never gonna happen. Never gonna happen.
Would that have been a bond for you and Wu had you guys both been shut out in the final two?
I think so. That would be the perfect setup for the Wu versus Fishbach season we've all been waiting for.
You know, Steven, you and I, we got a lot in common. We're both guys. We're on Survivor.
Yeah.
Hey, what happens in a final two when nobody gets a vote? Is it like, do we fight each other? Do we play in a Xbox Live match? What do we do?
Yeah, it'd be like that. It'd be just like that.
Yeah. That's the 3 more questions. Mohammed Abdi.
Mohammed Abdi, where do you rank Tony in the list of winners, Rob?
It's so hard to say off the top of my head. I feel like how about this? Can we rank Tony with a list of first-time winners?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's equally hard, right? The question is, who's better, Tony or Kim Spradlin?
I think Kim Spradlin is better.
Why?
I think Kim Spradlin played a more flawless game. I think that we're sitting here and we're coming up with a list of were there mistakes made, and I feel like Tony made mistakes, but he was so good he was able to correct the mistakes. Kim Spradlin, I think, played a more flawless game and made fewer missteps along the way.
All right, but Tony's definitely a better character than Kim Spradlin.
Oh, for sure. Right. We said Kim was boring during her season. So absolutely.
I never felt that way personally. I always liked watching Kim, and I still like watching Kim.
Fair enough. There you go. That well, Steven, I didn't know that was your thing.
Yeah. What? No. So who else though, other than Kim? Who among JT, first time winner, worse than Tony? I think.
Yes. Tony is better than JT.
Hate to say it, but I think it. Bob Crowley versus Tony.
Oh, he's better. Come on. Give me some people. Give me some real people.
I'm just screwing around. Richard Hatch versus Tony.
Boy, I think, did Jeff Probst in his AMA say Richard Hatch is overrated as a strategist? Well, Richard Hatch is not in the Strategic Six, so by proxy, Tony is in the Strategic Six, and Richard Hatch is not, and Tony is better.
All right, here's a real one. Brian Heidik versus Tony.
I think Brian Heidik was better. Again, the thing about Tony that made him so good and made him going to be a returning player is that he made mistakes along the way and was impulsive. The best of the best of our players are not impulsive, don't make these mistakes, don't have to scramble and pull a rabbit out of their butt like Tony had to do so many times.
You know what? I think normally I would agree with you, but because it's late and I've been having some scotch, I'm going to disagree with you. I think that there's an element.
You're being argumentative then.
No. You're saying there's one type of Survivor playstyle which is the best playstyle, and that's a very calm, very commanding and controlling playstyle. That works great for some people who have that temperament. Tony's temperament is to always be scrambling, always be iterating. And you know what? It's like those are two very different styles of life. The person who plots things out and moves forward very stoically, and the person who's always who has to pull the rabbit out of the hat but can pull the rabbit out of the hat. And I don't think that actually one is necessarily better than the other. If you can always make the rabbit appear, then you are just as reliable a winner.
I think that like the comparison is like, I know you're not a big baseball guy, even though you love fantasy baseball. I feel like the differences between somebody like that, it's like, that Kim Spradlin might be somebody like a Greg Maddux, where it's, she doesn't have great stuff and not flashy, but is, somehow like gets it done with being very, very cerebral and doing all these things. Whereas Tony is a guy who throws 100 miles an hour, walks a couple guys an inning, is pitching with the bases loaded all the time, but somehow strikes out 16 guys by the end of the game. And so it's a muddier sort of like there's all this crazy stuff going on, but he still gets it done also. But
and Tony played against harder competition than Kim did. Maybe Kim would have had to scramble a little bit more if he had been against someone other than Mike, whatever his name was. Chisel-jawed Mike. I believe his name was. I believe is what his name was.
Roy Zan, Tarzan, and Kat.
Yeah, Troyzan was Kim's biggest opponent in that season. That was her biggest obstacle, was Troyzan. Now compare that to Spencer, to Tasha, to Trish, to Cass, to LJ. I mean, my God, what a freaking opposition. And Tony still emerges triumphant from that.
Okay, let's go. Let's do 2 more questions. This is from the American Cow. Wants to know, question for you. After 28 seasons, how big of an effect does loyalty have in determining the winner?
I don't understand that question.
I feel like that if somebody stayed loyal the whole game, I feel like not a big factor, because
you know what?
Wu was very loyal.
Who?
Wu.
Yeah.
Remember the guy that was in the final 2 that got 1 vote, Steven? Did you forget about Wu already?
You know what? The one thing I will say, though, and I basically agree with you, Rob. The one thing I will say is that you have to remember that you watch Survivor on TV, but when you're out there, it does become very real. The feelings are very real, and certainly for first-time players, they're experiencing this thing for themselves for the very first time. Regardless of how many seasons you've watched on television, it's a real thing to be out there. So I think those emotions are more real than maybe they even seem. And that loyalty does matter. Maybe loyalty doesn't determine the final vote between Tony and Wu, but it might between Tony and Spencer.
Okay. Let's do 1 more question here, and then we'll get to our fan favorite player of the season. Jeremiah Panhorse wants to know. Jeremy Panhorse wants to know, when Tony comes back, is he the first person voted out? That's going to be the question for Tony.
I think no. I think Tony is going to. I mean, that's my Tony argument, is that he will always pull a rabbit out of the hat.
Yeah.
Number 2, Rob. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like that Tony is more likable. I think Tony's more likable than Russell Hantz was amongst the people he played with again. So I feel like Tony would not necessarily be the first one. If he plays his cards wrong, he could be, but I think he can handle himself okay.
Can we do number 2?
Okay, what's number 2?
Of the fan favorite of the season.
Okay, go ahead. Number 2, go for it. Then we have 1 more question.
Oh, okay. I thought that was the last one. Number 2.
Scott St. Pierre says we have 1 more.
Okay. Number 2 is going to be Tony Vlachos.
Okay. Well, let me just. How about this? Let's give it. Let's redo it.
Okay.
Because the top 2 are who you would think the top 2 would be.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Once again, it's Spencer versus Tony.
Oh wow. Let's do this question and then get to the bigger. Okay. Before we do that.
Spencer versus Tony. We'll come back and find out who won. Thomas Lehman wants to know, hey, Rob and Steven, will we see either of you on Blood versus Water 2? We're not allowed to say.
Yeah. I think if they promote the Token Teens DVD again, you might see a picture of my most anti-Semitic caricature. Other than that, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, we can't talk about that. Okay. And then finally, Steven, all right. So the RHAP fan favorite player of the season.
Yeah.
Of course, the winner will join me for a extended interview very, very shortly while they're in town. Okay?
Wow. Oh, in person.
In person, yes. I will sit down with the winner of this and have a proper presentation of this.
Wow.
Steven, the winner of this received 44.1% of the vote. Over 4,500 votes. The second place finisher had 13.9% of the vote.
This was a blowout.
26. It was a blowout. Who you got, Steven?
Spencer.
The winner of the RHAP fan favorite player of the season is Spencer. Who I feel like needs a nickname. I feel like he needs does he have a nickname? Charlie Brown? Is that his nickname?
Young Lad?
Young Lad. The Young Lad.
Yeah.
He is your winner. Spencer Bledsoe, congratulations. What a heck of a season. Tony comes up just short. He'll have to take the booby prize of the $1 million. And so Spencer is your winner, and I'm going to get together with Spencer later this week. We don't normally ever do this, but we're going to be able to. He's in town. Going to try to get together with him on Friday, and then we'll see if I can get that up either Friday or maybe after the Memorial Day weekend for you guys. Okay?
Great.
All right, so I'll have my exit interviews with the Final Four tomorrow. Look for that on robhasawebsite.com. Make sure that you are subscribed for that, robhasawebsite.com/iTunes. Steven, are we forgetting anything?
Oh, my God. I mean, excited to speak to you guys in a few months.
Yeah, that's it?
I think so.
Oh, my God.
Have a great summer, Rob.
Oh, by the way, Steven, we are going to be doing Survivor content all summer long on Rob as a Podcast. We typically have not. in the past, but I hadn't been a full-time podcaster then. And right now the plan is the patrons of Rob Has a Podcast, this was their idea, they suggested this, of basically one show a week covering a vast array of topics. We were talking about, should we rewatch a season and do one episode a week? We're going to do one topic a week and do a special Survivor.
Oh, that's fun. What's on a sample topic?
Stuff like I'm just like throwing stuff off the top of my head. Well, if we were to talk about like this is the who were the best players to get no votes in a final tribal council? Stuff like that. Or what has been the impact of whatever on Survivor? So sort of to come up with sort of like
I love that.
lecture ideas and sort of have a panel discussion once a week and do that in the summer.
Who do you got? That's just like from like with like guests.
Oh, we're gonna have a round table.
Oh, really?
Mix it up. We're gonna mix it up.
Oh, wow. That's
also,
amazing.
Steven, we're going to reboot these top 20 players of all time this summer. We last did it 3 years ago.
Right.
In the summer of 2011, I think, was the last time we did it. We're going to reboot that this upcoming summer and plenty more along the way. And, of course, Big Brother is right around the corner. We're covering Last Comic Standing, so I'm not really slowing down at all, unlike last Survivor summer off season.
Well, I am slowing down. I love Survivor podcasting, but I also love not having to race home every Wednesday night. I'm gonna be in my hyperbaric chamber during the summer, just rejuvenating.
Yeah. Good luck with that. People are asking, are those going to be for the patrons only? No, the patrons are suggesting the ideas, but those are going to be podcasts that are going to be for everybody over the summer. Okay, so I'm going to head out tonight. I'm going to some Survivor after parties. Tonight should be a fun night. Hopefully, I'll be okay for all your exit interviews tomorrow. And no, that's not even a question. Of course, I will be. I'm a professional, Steven.
Well, you know what? If you can always call me to sub in. If you're not, I missed, as I told you earlier, there was a big wine and cheese party tonight. The whole New York community got together to watch this finale. But I stayed home so that I could podcast right after the show was over.
Well, thank you, Steven. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks. Finally, some acknowledgement.
Finally. Well, I'm sure that the thousands and thousands of listeners also appreciate it.
Yeah,
too. So
finally some acknowledgement.
The many outweigh the needs of the one or the wine and cheese club.
That's true. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Steven, thank you so much. Another fantastic season. Congratulations to Tony, the winner of Survivor Cagayan. Can't wait to talk to Tony tomorrow, and Spencer, plus Cass and Wu along the way. So it's going to be a fun day. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for staying up late, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye.
Good night, Rob.